Any moment now. It says live. Hello, all you lovely people in internet land. This isn't even my show. Or is it?
Oh, it's hard
like
to...
Jonathan, Uncle Stabbo Martin is dead and I've taken his place. His rightful place against our actual host, which is some bloke from the States called Cody.
Chris Ferrell.
I'm not verified. I don't count.
Oh, you're not verified on Twitter. I forgot.
I'm not
You're
Twitter
not a real
verified yet.
person.
I'm MySpace verified, though. I don't even know if that exists.
MySpace verified? Yeah, I would get that. That'd be freaking awesome. Justin Timberlake, man, like in the club.
Me and JT are like this, man. We're the best of friends.
Whenever you go to his site, it plays your music.
Yeah. So AC, for your Australian audience, JT is Justin Timberlake. He is you can cut me off anytime. I'm assuming you know who Justin is.
I've actually kind of not, but I'm guessing he is some sort of American or Canadian guy who does stuff on entertainment. Yes, I got this.
That's very descriptive.
I'm guessing he's a singer. Is he a singer or is he an actor? Or is he both?
He's both.
He's both? Okay. Well, I think I knew he was a singer. I didn't know he acted.
He was successfully bracketed him in now. We know who he is. He's a singer-actor guy from either America or Canada.
He was in Sync or the Backstreet Boys, right?
You're asking the wrong bloke.
All right. Well, this has already gone well off the rails, which is exactly what I was hoping for. So, as AC introduced, I'm Cody Gough of Game Life Balance U.S. I'm joined by Andrew AC Yoshimura of Game Life Balance Australia. We are sister shows. And then our third cousin twice removed show. Well, there are several shows that Chris is part of, but the real Chris Ferrell is here from All Things Good and Nerdy, the official GoToGeek.com podcast, the Nerd Alert News, and at least two other podcasts.
Nerd Alert News closed down.
Oh, well, I don't really like that show. Why did you do that?
If you do that many podcasts and you're not verified, there's something wrong with the system.
So what we do now is everyone go follow me and tweet at Twitter directly, make Chris verified, and they'll do nothing. We can pretend like it worked though.
I'm on board with that.
Justin Timberlake is now verified. Cool, excellent.
Oh, damn it.
So anyway, today we have all come together and combined forces because we all have a little thing called the Nintendo Switch, which Chris has expertly reviewed. Oh, you have the blue and red Joy-Con. I have the black Joy-Cons.
I had to get because it's like it looks more like a toy and it's like a Nintendo thing. So you know.
And because you could only locate one that was in stores, so you probably didn't have a choice.
You know what? They are everywhere in Australia. Switches are prolific. You can you go to Costco and there's like a wall of them. And the reason is it's because I think in Australia they're so damn expensive because the Australian dollar is kind of low. So people go, it's almost $500, and then you got to buy Zelda and then a Pro controller, and that's like creeping up to $600 or more dollars. So, maybe not. So I think people do buy them, but they're not flying off shelves over here. I got mine from Japan.
Right, because they are flying off the shelves from Japan, and you could only find one, basically, right?
I found this one secondhand. I did actually have a choice between a new black one or a secondhand color one. And it was, of course, cheaper because it was secondhand. But the thing is, they said, there's a scratch on it. And I have been over this thing like with a magnifying glass, and there is no scratch that I can find. It's the Japanese version of scratch, which means that there might be a tiny scratch on the back underneath somehow, or possibly on the inside of the case. So, like they said, there's a scratch, and I just went, there's no scratch. I'll take that for much less money. So,
yeah, no
I
doubt.
am quite happy that I got the colorful one, actually, because that way it won't suddenly disappear in my house and I won't be able to find it.
Yeah, good. And wait, Chris, what were you about to say?
I can't even remember now.
Wow, that was like 3 seconds. It wasn't even 30 seconds or part way. It was literally maybe 3 seconds. But I think, honestly, my normal co-host, Uncle Stabbo, Jonathan Martin, has a shorter attention span than that. So you're still beating him.
Can we please make him a graphic that just Uncle Stabbo every time he talks in the future?
I like that idea. Well, AC has reviewed the Nintendo Switch and 1-2 Switch on Game Life Balance Australia, which you should check out. And Chris did a really cool, very informative review of the Nintendo Switch on the official GonnaGeek.com podcast. And that is how I learned where and how to buy a screen protector, because I hadn't even considered buying a screen protector until I learned from that podcast that sometimes if you can explain it, but basically once you're putting it in the track on the dock, it can scratch it. If you want to go over that briefly again.
Yeah, so what's going on there is the Switch has a plastic screen. It's not Gorilla Glass like you see on your cell phones or your iPads and things like that. So it's plastic in part to cut costs, but also because they said, well, if you drop with a plastic screen, it's not going to shatter. You might just get a crack instead. So it was a design consideration. The problem is your Switch dock is plastic, so you have plastic rubbing on plastic, and if there's any kind of dirt or grit there, people were starting to see their screens get scratched up. So when the Switch first dropped here in North America, there was an incredible run on screen protectors because everyone's like, I'm not getting my Switch scratched up, it's brand new. So I remember I bought mine, and then the next day I was out trying to find a screen protector once I saw the thread on Reddit or whatever about scratched screens, and then I waited another week for a tempered glass one to get shipped in from Amazon.
Nice. I actually got a screen protector too, but the funny thing is that my Switch remains docked literally 99% of the time I'm using it. I think I've only used it once back in Australia where I didn't have it docked, and I hated it because I'm so used to playing Zelda on the Pro controller that when all of a sudden I've got the screen basically in between a much kind of smaller controllers, and my hands are pretty big, it was very much more awkward to play. So although I put the screen protector on and I did all the right things, it just kind of lives in the dock connected to my TV. Do you guys use the portable version of it much?
So I was going to actually speak to that just a little bit. So before we get into the full-blown Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda review, just a couple notes on the Switch, since I haven't really reviewed it at all on Game Life Balance US. So I have played it extensively portably. In fact, I fought Ganon in the portable mode on an airplane because I got overzealous and happened to be in Hyrule Castle, and whoops, there's the final boss of the game. And oh, the flight is deboarding. Please pause the end of the game when Ganon is at a fifth of his health, so you may deboard the plane and then exit into the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport. And then I was actually going to visit Jonathan, Uncle Stabbo Martin, my normal co-host. And when I got to his place, we were all there to play board games. So it was several hours before I then resumed playing, finished the end boss, and then had to pause it halfway through the credits and then watch the end of the credits as I was laying on a couch, drunk, trying to fall asleep. So I will say that while the quality of the screen, I think, is phenomenal. I think the graphics are great. I think it's nice because it's so immediately responsive in your hands. Whereas with the dock, occasionally you can notice a very, very, very slight delay. I mean, we're talking a fraction of a second, but it is immediately responsive when it's all in your hand. It's in my hand. I've got it off camera, but I'm just holding it here talking. It's not on. Don't worry. I'm not playing while we podcast, although I very easily could because it's portable. Oh, there's Zelda. Oh, look at Cody's inventory. Oh, what does he have?
I know you don't want to get into Zelda just quite yet, but I got to ask, when you walked in on the boss, was it kind of half by accident? Did you know that you were going into because I kind of walked in and I kind of went, oh, this is the boss. It's kind of like walking into someone when they're in the shower. It was like, oh, whoops. Oh, maybe I shouldn't be in here just yet. Whoops.
I mean, I saw a big throbbing, pulsing thing somewhere in the room, which usually in real life, when I walk and see a throbbing, pulsing thing in a room, I do not enter. But in this particular case, Chris looks very contemplative about this particular.
Chris is trying not to go back to an older episode where Cody was talking about his throaty and manly voice.
I do remember that one. Boy. I did know it was Ganon, but I didn't. I figured he would kill me. And I have Well, I thought we'll talk about Ganon and the difficulty curve and all that stuff later, but I didn't think I was at a point where I'd be able to beat him. So I figured, oh, I'll trigger it, see how crazy it is, and then be done. And I ended up beating the game because it was a lot less difficult than I thought. But I was way further than you were. You did it with like 3 hearts or something, right?
Oh, good Lord.
Me, no. I had almost not a full complement of hearts, but I had more than a row. I think I had 1 full row plus 2. I was pretty far into the game when I beat him. I had all the memories and divine beasts and everything like that. So it wasn't. It was just when I walked in by accident, I was just exploring the castle, and there are big throbbing things because of all that purple gunk all over the place, and I wasn't really paying attention because I thought the castle would be so massive that I wouldn't be able to just accidentally wander in. I thought there'd be a couple of mini bosses or something first, and then all of a sudden it triggered a cutscene, and I went, I don't even know where in the castle I am. I was just climbing a wall, and then I ended up here, and there's Zelda talking to me from the ceiling, and then there's the big throbbing thing, and it's purple, and all of a sudden I was just in the full of it.
So no spoilers, Chris, but we will give you many purple throbbing things to look forward to.
That's not a loaded statement at all, but we'll continue to just move forward.
Well, anyway, I digress. I had to go back to the handheld. My favorite thing in the universe about the Nintendo Switch is the ability to hold both controllers in both hands, the Joy-Cons, and just lay back with your chest open, which is extremely good for you posture-wise and ergonomically. It's just good for your body to just sit back in the couch. And it may seem like more of a slouchy position, but it is legitimately like it's good to have an open chest. It's like a yoga thing, I guess. According to my fiance, I don't know if it's true, but I absolutely love it. Like my favorite thing about playing the game was just being able to sit back. So when I was on the airplane, actually, I flew to San Francisco a few weeks ago, and then flew before my Minneapolis trip. When I flew to San Francisco, it was a 3 or 4 hour plane ride, and by a couple hours in of just playing Zelda nonstop, my arms and hands kind of did get to be a little uncomfortable because you're already crammed into an airplane seat. And now on top of that, you've got your hands just in a perfectly parallel position. So it got to be a bit uncomfortable. So I think that in general as a handheld, yeah, once in a while, I think it's fine. But for really prolonged periods of time, I probably would prefer to be using the full screen mode. But it's not, for me, it's not a screen thing. I don't know, Chris, about you, how much you've used its portability.
So it varies by game, I found out. When I'm playing Zelda, most of the time I'm playing with the Pro Controller docked in the TV. Now, when I'm doing something that's important, if I'm just exploring, I'll generally undock it and we'll be watching something else on TV while I'm sitting there staring at my Switch, kind of exploring, occasionally looking up. What I have found out, though, is I just picked up Mario Kart like this last weekend. I mean, we're not here to talk about Mario Kart, but I found I like to play that more in handheld mode than I do like to play it on the big screen TV. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm so used to like all the DS versions of Mario Kart and stuff and being able to play, just have it right up against me. But I love playing Mario Kart in handheld mode on the big screen. I feel like there's just a touch of lag that throws me off a little bit.
I prefer playing Mario Kart 8 docked as well, but usually, because I had it on the Wii U and everything's already unlocked, I usually play that multiplayer. So when I play Mario Kart 8, it's with other people. Like we have like 2 to 4 other people playing at the same time on the big screen. And I don't really notice any lag on mine. Maybe I'm just not as susceptible to it because
probably I just suck at the game and that's my excuse I'm giving myself.
AC, I think it's because you're in Australia and time works. So you're further in the future?
Being in the future does help.
Right. So what automatically any lag is already compensated for by the difference in your position in the space-time continuum?
I believe it's called the Coriolis effect, yes. I learned that from The Simpsons.
I actually learned the Coriolis effect from Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Not kidding. Chris, you were about to posit something about the space-time continuum, unless you've already forgotten.
I don't even know what I was supposedly going to say about the space-time continuum, so we'll pretend like I forgot. I'm just here to be Uncle Stabbo today, guys.
You'll never sink to that level. Anyway, so I will say the one thing, my one major complaint about the Switch is that I have the original old left Joy-Con, which is not good.
And you haven't sent it back to Nintendo for fixing?
Not yet.
Because you're too lazy?
Yeah. So
Switch then.
I didn't do so. Just so you know, some of the original manufacturing runs of the Switch, the left Joy-Con is basically missing a little square of some kind of material. I don't remember what it is. It's some kind of electric aluminum.
I think it's actually part of the antenna. It's not long enough, or it doesn't have enough conductivity. So other things can interfere with the Bluetooth between your Switch and the Joy-Con. So I think it is fixed by basically putting some conductive foam on the inside. And some people have fixed it by just adding like a little extra section to the antenna as well. But if mine does that, I haven't noticed because it's been playing, as I said, like 99% in docked mode. So if I do have that issue, I might not even figure it out until like maybe months into the future. Go, why is this not working? What's the problem?
Wait, when you say in docked mode, don't you mean that the Switch is in the TV and you're holding the Joy-Con separately?
I mean that I play with the Pro Controller, so
it's not going to be a problem for him.
They're always on the side. Like they're just kind of permanently attached to the side, pretty much.
Okay.
Because the only way I ever really take them out is for Mario Kart, I think.
Gotcha. Okay. And Chris, did you have left Joy-Cons that work properly, I'm guessing?
As far as I know, they work properly, but to be fair, most of the time when I'm playing, it's with the Pro Controller if I'm docked, and if I'm not, I'm just holding it in like with the Joy-Cons clipped onto the Switch itself. So I don't unclip the Joy-Cons and play very often.
I recommend it.
Like when we reviewed 1-2 Switch, we did use the Joy-Cons and we found no issues. But then again, 1-2 Switch is a pretty crappy game, so if there was some connectivity issues there, we probably wouldn't have noticed.
Well, you two need to stop using the Pro Controller all the time because I'm telling you, it is. And to be honest, I have huge hands. AC, I know you're a pretty tall gent yourself, but I'm 6 feet 4 inches, or about.
You're a couple of inches taller than I am.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So about 205 centimeters, I think, is what I am. Sound about right?
Yeah.
All right.
I think it'd be like 190 something or something, or 194 or something.
Oh,
195.
Yeah.
I don't think you've cracked. I mean, if you include your anime hair, you'd probably crack the 2 meter mark.
That's the thing. Cody's hair gives him an extra 2 inches of height over me.
That's true. Chris is a tall one too. You're probably 6'3", 6'4"?
6'3", 6'4", depending. Yeah.
All right, so you're listening to the Giants podcast.
Well, I'm actually only about 6'1", 6'2", so like this is very rare that I'm the smallest person in the room or the podcast.
Well, just you wait until I come to Australia and or Japan, and we're all just terrified of whatever happens after that. But so
you know what? You know what I'm going to do? When I see you for the first time, I'm immediately going to jump onto your shoulders. And probably slap you on the ass going, giddy up, giddy up.
Which is actually a traditional greeting in Australia, I've heard.
Oh, yeah. We do. The Queen gets it when she comes here. The Prime Minister just jumps on her back and goes, giddy up, you old bag.
Is the Queen perhaps going to make a cameo in this episode?
We are not sure about that. But you never knew. She might duck you in for a quick cup of tea and some scones.
Oh, my God. Rob is rolling over in his bed right now, assuming he's still asleep. Back to the Joy-Con controller. This is about as hard as I thought it would be to stay on track. So anyway, we're all gigantic and we have big hands. And the first time I held the Joy-Con controller, I was like, is this a joke? These are the smallest buttons. It's so tiny. I think it's going to be uncomfortable. And I've been able to play Zelda for hours on end, not thinking that at all. Like, it actually has turned out to be perhaps the most comfortable controller I've ever used, which blows my mind. Again, Nintendo geniuses. I don't know how they do it.
I don't know. I think it actually has a comparable thickness and button size to the Game Boy Advance SP to a certain extent, because it's kind of, it's very close together. And you're looking at a kind of tiny screen on an angle, and the buttons are very close. So even when you're using only one Joy-Con to play something like Mario Kart I don't think it's that bad. Like it it feels solid. It doesn't feel flimsy, and I think that helps because you can grip it as hard as you want, and you can kind of turn it and throw it at your opponent, whatever. That happens.
The toughest thing for me with the
Violence
Joy-Cons is the bumper buttons are so small.
Mm.
That's the thing I have the hardest time with. Is I can hit the triggers no problem, but the bumpers, I'm like, did I hit it? Oh crap! It's tiny.
That's what the little strap thing is for, though, I guess. Like
That's true.
if you clip the strap on, but even then, like all the strap is just an extra piece of plastic with some buttons on top, which just forces those bumpers down. So
And I have a hard time getting the strap back off when I put it on, so I tend not to do it.
I go strapless all the time. I'm strap free.
See, I heard when you put the strap on, it's a lot easier to defeat the throbbing things.
I was afraid that joke was going to get me.
Someone was going to make it, and I kind of knew that it was going to be Cody.
At least it wasn't me.
Oh, hanging fruit, if you will. All right, that's podcast over.
Purple throbbing fruit.
So overall, I hope that was a good overview for whatever audience is left. God forbid anyone is still listening to this. But I hope that was a good little overview of kind of some of the quirks of the Switch and a couple ways to maybe protect your screen a bit and a couple different ways to enjoy the game and some pros and cons of the portability versus the non-portability. I will also say one other thing. I did not notice the battery life being a factor at all. Pretty much survived all the plane trips I took. I did bring an extra portable charger, and it actually works with my Android phone. I've got an HTC whatever cable that is, so I was able to kind of charge it as I went. But it holds a pretty good charge, and no performance issues because it is the whole console in your hand, which is neat. So yes, that will wrap up and conclude our little Nintendo Switch segment. And now, even though we've been full gamer this entire time, I feel like dropping in a sound effect in the audio podcast at this point. So this is where we will go. Full gamer.
Dun dun dun.
That was a better sound effect than what I could have put in, honestly.
I have no idea what sound effect you use because, as you know, I always watch you on YouTube. I love to see the unedited YouTube where like you and John just go hammer and tongs at each other sometimes. Like your internet will drop out and there'll just be like a 10-minute period where going, are we up yet? God, I hate you so much, John.
You're really selling our YouTube channel.
It's gold. It is gold.
What URL, Cody? Where do we find your YouTube channel?
You can find our audio podcast at GameLifeBalanceUS.com, or hey, you're at GameLifeBalanceAustralia.com. And Chris, well, you're on GonnaGeek.com, and all things. What's
ATGMpodcast.com.
ATGMpodcast.com. Right. So check us all out there for shows that we presumably have under a reasonable amount of control compared to what's happening right now.
Ours is about the same, I reckon.
Yeah,
actually.
I was going to say this is pretty much standard
the course.
And I will note before we delve into the Zelda part that it's evening, Friday evening where Chris and I are. So I'm actually, we would normally have beer, but AC, I had presumed you'd be drinking. And in fact, you were drinking.
Oh, yeah. I've got maybe a beer, a Asahi beer, and a Red Bull, maybe with a dash of vodka in there somewhere. And the thing is that I've got to do a whole bunch of housework after this. And, because my wife and daughter are coming back from Japan later this week. So I've got to clean the entire house, do all the washing. And then after that, I've got my own podcast to do this afternoon. So at some point, I've either got to sober up or get really, really, really drunk.
I know what I vote.
Number 2 is always a good option.
Number 2 is certainly a good option that I'm not going to turn into a joke about throbbing things. So, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is the newest Legend of Zelda video game. It was released in February or March 2017. No one really cares because it's been out for at least a few months. And if you're listening to this now, you probably don't care when it came out exactly either. But suffice to say, it took a few months for me to beat, mostly because I've been distracted by Final Fantasy XIV. Chris is actually not quite beaten it yet because you got distracted by another game.
Yeah, Mass Effect Andromeda. I have a problem that I love Mass Effect far too much. And as soon as that game came out, I then spent about 65 hours playing that game and took a break from Zelda. And I'm just now working my way back into playing Zelda again.
So how many hours into Zelda are you now?
I think it said I had about 48 or 50 hours into Zelda right now. I spent a lot of time exploring, and honestly, what it came down to for me, before I started doing Divine Beasts and stuff, I was like, I want the Master Sword. So I was just doing shrines to get hearts.
Ah.
So
And Cody, how many hours were you in before you finished it?
that's a really good question. You know, I just finished it. I'm actually going to turn on my Switch to check.
You can look, yeah. While you're doing that,
yeah.
I'll mention that I did over 90 hours, between 90 and 95 hours, I think I spent on Zelda. And after I finished it, I did a couple of other things, like went back and just defeated a couple of Lionels and stuff that I'd never bothered defeating the first time, and killed them, and then kind of went, okay, I think I've done most of what I need to see in the game.
Okay. So I'm at 65 hours-ish, and I pretty much just beat the game. So yeah, figure about 63, 64 hours minimum to beat the game. And that will bring us to the completion percentage, which we'll get to momentarily. But just to set the stage for those who don't really know much about this game, who maybe wait a little bit to buy the latest and greatest in games and didn't buy it when it was brand new, this game totally breaks the Zelda formula. So with The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, they had a formula. You got 3 magical pendants, and then that lets you get the Master Sword. And then there were 6 crystal palaces, and then you fought Ganon. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was extremely similar. You were Child Link, you got 3 pendant type things, you got the Master Sword, and then you turn into an adult and you beat 6 or 7 basically temples. And that formula continued again with The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. You got 3 magical whatever it was, and then you got I believe the Master Sword again, or somewhere around there, and then you beat a handful of shrines. A little bit of a different formula with the later part of the game, and then you beat the game. And The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, which up until this point was my favorite game in the series, exact same thing, variations on a theme. You've got your 3 temples, and they would always, of course, introduce different weapons, different order of getting items, different ways to solve puzzles, and a couple different gameplay elements here and there, like Wolf Link in that game. But for the most part, it has always, since Link to the Past, which came out in the early 90s, always been variations on a theme that was pretty much get to do a few dungeons, Master Sword, harder dungeons, and most of it was pretty linear. Occasionally you could skip around 1 or 2 dungeons, but overall pretty much a linear deal. So for 20 some years, it's been more or less the same exact formula. Even Skyward Sword did pretty much the same thing. They introduced kind of a 3rd act that I thought was very repetitive and actually turned me off from that game near the end. But for the most part, good games. I like Zelda. I'm assuming both of you like Zelda as well. But there are people like my normal co-host, Jonathan Uncle Stabo Martin, who got a bit sick of the formula. And there are some who I think are less Zelda crazed because it's been a bit of a repetitive thing. This game completely eschews all of that, like in every way possible, and makes it a completely nonlinear game, even more so than the original Legend of Zelda from 1986. And it opens it up in a whole new way. So I will perhaps Chris is really good at giving kind of general, very concise overviews. So I'll let Chris do a pretty quick overview, and then AC give his thoughts on the new structure.
So the new structure, it's very similar to a lot of those other open world games you might have played, like Skyrim or some of the Dragon Age games, in part because you can go and do whatever you want. You can go explore, do whatever you want. This game doesn't hold your hand after the very first, 3 hours of the game roughly. You start the game on Hyrule Plateau, you have to unlock some powers, and then from that point, if you really wanted to, once you get off that plateau, which takes about 2 to 3 hours to beat, you could go beat Ganon and call it a game if you wanted, or at least try to. The fun in this game, and literally how they built it, is you're just expected to explore, to wander around the environment, be like, hey, that looks cool, let me go check that out. Happen upon shrines, unlock abilities, find new cool toys. Everything in this game is about just go get lost in the world. And it's strangely enjoyable, but it's also overwhelming at times, I think, too. Because you're like, what do I do now? I guess I can just wander around. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I forgot what mission I'm on. I forgot what I need to do next.
Yeah, good summary, I think. And I would add to that when you say the first few hours you kind of go through a couple different steps for the game, it still delves you immediately into the action. So a huge complaint that I have about Wind Waker is a lot of people's favorite Zelda game. I hate the first two kind of dungeon areas where you first the one in the little cave up on the top of your island, and then that little prison you have to infiltrate. I utterly hate them. I tried replaying through through Wind Waker probably 4 times, and I would get halfway through that first dungeon and I just got so sick of it I would stop. And Twilight Princess did a fine job of getting you started. But then Skyward Sword, which gameplay wise was a phenomenal game, the intro / tutorial part of that game where they do all the exposition and kind of introduce you to the world is literally like 2 to 3 hours of just running around talking to people. It's extremely slow paced and monotonous. And when I started playing Skyward Sword, I think I got 3 hours into it and then literally stopped for 9 months because I had no interest in playing the game. Zelda, the Breath of the Wild, you literally wake up in a shrine and you exit and you're playing the game. There's no person there to tell you what to do. There's no fairy throwing dialogue at you and yelling, hey, listen, and telling you where to go. You literally walk out of a tomb-like shrine and there's the game. And you can run around and crawl up stuff and fall off cliffs and die and get attacked by things. And from there, you'll eventually meet somebody and kind of get some direction. But it's on. Within 5 minutes of turning on that game, it's on. I don't know, AC, if you kind of got that feel.
I did, yeah. I think you say that it is, fundamentally different in terms of gameplay and even in not so much story, because there's going to be a basic Zelda underlying story to these games. But I think in terms of the purity, I think it actually harkens back to the first game a lot, because in the first game, you're not given a whole bunch of exposition. You're not really given any direction. You just suddenly there's like little 8-bit Link and he can kind of wander off and you see a cave, but you don't have to go into the cave. You don't have to get the sword. Yeah, there are people who do complete playthroughs of that game without using the sword at all, I do believe. So you can just go and wander around and, if you happen to find the second temple first, then, you can probably still do it. And even then, you need to explore so much to get to the rest of the temples in the first game. And I think there is a purity there that also exists in Breath of the Wild as well, because you do, I suppose, the tutorial plateau you have to do, but after that you've got the entire world, and it is a big world. It's absolutely massive. And when I first finished the plateau, and I chose a stamina wheel, because you get to choose either a heart or like part of your stamina wheel upgrade. I chose the stamina because I was already annoyed at losing my breath and plummeting off the side of a cliff. So I actually worked on that because I just love
all of us.
Yeah, and when I first started playing this game, I thought, all right, my wife and baby daughter are going to come back, in about a month or so time from Japan. And I need to finish this game before they come back. Reason being is because after they get back, and when you have like a 10, 11-month-old baby, you're not going to have a whole lot of time for gaming. So I thought, I really, really need to push on and slog through and finish this great game. And that lasted for about a day. I kind of was making my way up to like the first, the Zoro, whatever it's called, Divine Beast, yeah. And then I kind of got halfway through that area and then kind of went back and did a whole bunch of shrines and started exploring, and then decided, I actually want to unlock more of the map and everything like that. So I got distracted, even though I told myself I was going to mainline it. Turns out that was a complete lie. And I enjoyed exploring the land and the world so much more than I think I actually enjoyed, the story of, like getting all the divine beasts back under your control.
So AC had mentioned that it's kind of the spiritual successor to the first Zelda game. There was an article I read either in like Game Informer or IGN or something like that, that when they were plotting out Breath of the Wild, there is a version of the game in Nintendo proper we'll never see that is basically a 2D version, top-down version, like old school Zelda, that is Breath of the Wild, how they plotted things out, how they built the map out, how they built the levels. So there's a playable 2D version of Breath of the Wild, just like the original Legend of Zelda game. I really wish they'd put that out one day.
I would pay money for that DLC.
Oh, yeah. That's DLC I care about versus the first half of the DLC coming with this game.
Yeah. I don't know. The DLC is an interesting beast because it, like, I don't really feel like going back and playing hard mode, but I am kind of curious to see where I've been on the map, because in the DLC apparently it's going to trace where you've been throughout the world, and
that's what's cool.
Mine is just going to be an insane squiggle of like me like porting from here to here to here, and I just kind of want to see where I've been, because I know that there are places that I haven't been, but because I may have had a couple of drinks when I was playing, I don't really remember so well. And have I been here? I don't know. There's a shrine, but maybe I was too cold to be in this area, because that's another factor to this game, is that the environment will, actively hurt you and hurt you a lot if you don't take the proper precautions before you enter that area. It's either going to be too hot or too cold, or if it's raining, you won't be able to climb the cliff properly.
Yeah, there's a lot of there are a lot of gameplay elements to this game that were not in other Zelda games. For example, you have an inventory of bows, an inventory of swords or weapons, and an inventory of shields, and they can all and will all often break. So you can pick up the rusty sword that you found at a shrine. Yay, attack 14. Cool, I'm going to kill things. Once you've attacked 40 or 50 times with it, it just shatters and it's gone forever. And then you pick up a spear from a moblin that you fight. Yay, I've got 28 attack. Cool, I'm going to kill things with this. And then 30 or 40 or 50 attacks later, that's been totally shattered. And that literally happens through the entire game, which at first I thought would be super annoying. And it is a little annoying, but
it can be annoying, yeah.
But because of the controls, they basically have a quick select menu that lets you re-equip items just by holding the right button on the D-pad on your left Joy-Con or left hand, and on the right you just slide with your joystick. They also do that with, I believe it's shields. Is it shields? Bows and shields, right?
Yeah, shields and the powers as well.
And then the powers
on the D-pad, you can.
Yeah, and it's interesting what they did with the powers. So in the Zelda games, you typically in each dungeon would pick up an item like the boomerang or the hook shot or a leaf that blows wind, and you can use that to solve a puzzle. In this game, you get basically 4 abilities, and you get them at the very beginning of the game. One freezes time, one uses magnetic powers to move magnetic objects, one's a bomb, and the other is... It's pretty much it, right? The
stasis.
Stasis, yes.
Yep. Stasis power, yeah. So it freezes time, or will freeze certain things in place, and then you can hit that object, and when it unfreezes, the kinetic energy will fire it off in whatever direction you were hitting it in.
Yeah, and you get them all at the very beginning of the game, but somehow they're able to utilize the... Oh, no, there's the ice power. Totally forgot about the ice power.
Oh, yeah. Because I use that a ton.
Which is so crazy, and I love... They somehow, I don't know how Nintendo did this, but that's that one magical power where it's the simplest mechanic in the universe. But even though you have these 5 powers at the start of the game, when you go to dungeons later in the game, you'll be stumped by a puzzle until you remember, oh wait, I have this ability I haven't used in a while. And it feels like this genius eureka moment that you just remember something that you've literally had the entire game that like, oh, that's the thing I'm supposed to use. Maybe in a way that I haven't used it before, but it still keeps it really fresh. And it sounds like, oh, there's only 5 ways to solve puzzles. That's lame. But there's not, because A, they do cool things with it. And B, everything you do, and I think at the heart of why this game is so good, is because everything you do does exactly what you expect it to do, and you can do stuff, you can solve puzzles in a way that you're probably not supposed to be able to solve them.
I did on a couple.
Did you?
Yeah.
And talk about like what that's like.
So there's this one puzzle where they drop a ball into a maze and you have to tilt your controller and kind of guide it through this maze so that you can dump it into another hole. Now, what I found out is if you quickly flip your controller upside down, it basically turns that entire maze upside down. So it drops the ball on the back side of the maze, which has no path to guide things through. And you can literally just angle it towards the hole you're supposed to drop in. So it's one of the very early temples I did. So I just did that because I got frustrated trying to navigate through this maze. I was like, oh, hell with this. Let's see if it works. And I was like, it worked. So then I started trying to figure out how to cheat other temples, I'll be honest.
And that's the thing. Like, I think the motion controls are something interesting to talk about as well, because like Nintendo seems to want to force us to have motion controls. It's like, we came up with this idea and we're going to use it till the end of time, but we don't really like till the end of time.
Oh, and it's so bad for like the bow and arrow. I had to turn off the motion controls because I couldn't shoot properly with it, because I'd start to move a little bit and my bow would whoop and jump across the screen.
And that's something that I want to talk about, because I was playing with the Pro Controller. I knew that there were motion controls, but I didn't even figure out that there were motion controls tied to the bow action, because usually when I'm playing, I play pretty stationary, but then sometimes I would be taking a shot using the right joystick to kind of like line everything up. And then my hand would jerk and I'd miss and I'd go, oh, it must be a crappy bow or something. And it wasn't about until like a couple of hours later they went, hang on a minute, there's motion control on this.
Exactly.
I didn't know this was connected to the bow. I'm an idiot. But I felt like I should have turned it off. But I realized that me going, like waving my arms around like this in front of enemies was actually a little bit more accurate than using the joystick. So I kept it on, stopped using like the joystick to aim altogether, and just kind of used my the motion controls with my hands in front of the TV, and that seemed to work pretty well.
See, I couldn't do that. That threw me off more. I was more accurate using the thumbstick, I found out.
Oh, no thumbstick for me. I was totally a Joy-Con guy, and I thought it was perfect. I thought, I mean, in terms of one-to-one movement, better than the Wii Remote, better than the Wii Motion Plus, better than the Wii U. I mean, I thought it was, even with the kind of broken left Joy-Con, since a lot of that motion control was stationed in the right Joy-Con, I just thought it was spot on for me personally.
See, I think it'd be fantastic when you're playing the Switch in handheld mode to use those motion controls, because you're just moving the whole system in front of you. But for me, when I'm playing with a controller in my hand, if I start to shoot or I'm getting anxious, I'll lean forward in my chair. When I lean forward, that makes the controller move, and then everything starts jumping around the screen. So it's kind of a muscle memory that I couldn't break, and it was killing me in the game.
I think there are some places where it's really good. Like, I actually found it really useful for when I was aiming my arrows. But then there are other things, like when you're meant to be aiming your magnesis, and then because there are different ways that you need to pull and push different objects, and it needs to be a lot more precise in some ways. And when motion controls kind of added for that and kind of everything jumps around the screen a bit, I found that a little bit more annoying with some of the powers. So I think it can be really good in some places. And then it's just, if you forget you have it for other things, you kind of like their inaccuracy can creep in. And there were some puzzles in the shrines where you needed to do that. And I had the same experience as Chris, where you were meant to guide the ball through the maze. And instead of flipping it over, I just flipped it, like not over, but just up in the air. And then it would land just in the hole next to where the maze exit, basically. So you can still do that. But there was one puzzle where you had to get 3 balls into 3 slots. And no matter how I flipped it or matter how I tried to do it, the motion controls just didn't seem to move the way I wanted it to do. So I just gave up on that entire temple and just left and went, motion controls are stupid in this case.
Also, motion controls get a little confused while you're planus taxiing around.
Oh, okay, I could see that too.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
That definitely, my arrow aim was quite bad when we were just pulling onto the runway, like really, really bad. But other than that, and I did use the joystick for the magnet. It's so strange. I could do the arrows, the bow and arrow perfectly with motion control, but using the magnet power, I almost always had to use the joystick.
Yeah,
don't know why. So we're jumping around a little bit, but I mean, the motion control is a big part of it. And the non-linearity is a big part of it. So what Nintendo does with this is they say, okay, look, we're not going to have temples or dungeons in the traditional sense. We're going to have shrines. And a shrine is basically one major puzzle or a short series of puzzles, maybe 3 or 4, or maybe it's just a mini boss.
Yeah, the combat challenges.
Combat challenge, right?
Some of those are brutal too.
Yeah, some of them are quite. When you get to the major tests of strength towards the end of the game, and you've got to use your powers in conjunction with actually fighting these guys, that's when it can get a little bit insane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So these shrines are all over the map, and some you can see from the top of these towers that you can kind of look out. You can mark them on your map and kind of head towards them. Others are hidden pretty well. Others are hidden really well. There's one hint I got from someone in a town that said something like, when you stand on a certain tower in the shadow of the moon and you loose an arrow towards the sun, then the way will be open towards you. And I'm like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I'm never going to find this shrine. Chris, you look like that sounded familiar to you.
I just did that shrine like within the last week or two. And I remember it's on the top of a tower. You talk to someone who's on the top of the tower. As soon as you unlock it, they tell you that. And I was looking around and I said, what is this little weird piece of land sitting on the side of the mountain? And I went down there. I said, something's got to pop out of here. And I was like, but it's like night. So I actually lit a fire, stayed there until about noontime, and then just randomly fired an arrow at the sun like they talked about as it was going by the tower. And then all of a sudden this shrine pops out of the ground. I was like, holy crap, this is actually legit. I was just trying this because I didn't know what to do.
See, I haven't done that one, but there is a similar one in high up in the mountains when it's really, really cold, and you can only be there if you've got, like, if you're near a fire or if you've got like special armor that will allow you to be in cold places for long periods. But basically you have to hold up, and this is at a pretty precise, like 4 p.m. when the sun is going down. You have to hold up a snowball in front of the end, like in front of the circle on the side of a hill, and the snowball that you're holding up has to line up with the hole precisely for a couple of seconds as the sun is going down, and then the shrine will appear. And I must have tried that about 5 times to get it right, because there's a trick you can do, and this is a little hint for you out there, that if you don't have the correct armor or the correct gear to go out into the cold, if you have a flame sword, that will keep you warm in cold places.
Right.
So yeah, if you have a big fire sword, equip it, and you can run through. You still, and you'll be kept just above level of freezing. However, if you pick up something like a snowball, it will pretty gradually melt. And I didn't realize this until it was like, oh, come on, wasn't this a bit bigger a couple of minutes? Oh, the flame sword is melting everything.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about with this. Everything that has an effect on the environment affects it in the exact way that it logically would affect the environment. This isn't like other games where you can shoot a fire arrow at a wooden door, but it's Resident Evil and you're not supposed to open that door, so nothing will happen. Like, no, in this game, that door will light on fire and burn away.
Yeah, like Cody's talking about, everything has a consequence in this game. And some of the worst ones, at least for me, is lightning storms. Because if you have anything metal equipped, you start to see arcs of electricity on your character. You're like, oh, I better unequip everything real quick. And I ran into something by accident that I did when this happened. Is I was fighting this one guy. There was a lightning storm that was arcing on me. So instead of unequipping, I threw my sword at the bad guy. The lightning came down and hit my sword at his feet and killed him. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is so cool.
Yeah, it's that attention to detail, because you do get struck by lightning if you have anything metal equipped. And the fact that you can literally throw it and guide a lightning strike at an enemy, I mean, because again, it's like, okay, well, logically, if my character's wearing metal, it attracts lightning. If I throw the thing that's metal, it still attracts lightning. All of the logic is so perfectly consistent. If you use a fire rod on a torch, the torch will light up. If you just do anything, if you're using a shock arrow on something, it's going to electrocute it every time. I can't even come up with the best examples because it's so ubiquitous.
I wish I
think
could say
there's
I was thinking it out when I threw that sword, but I was just in a panic because I didn't want to die. So I threw the sword and then saw that happen. I was like, huh, son of a gun.
I think it was some of this comes in handy in shrines when when you can't quite get the puzzle right for whatever reason. So there is one where you have to light all the flames on each side of basically a cube. But there is kind of water running down and it will keep putting out the fire. So instead of finding the exact combination of turning the cube this way, this way, this way, forward, back, side, rotate 3 times, it's basically like a mini Rubik's Cube. You just equip a fire arrow and just light them all at the same time without having to move it around. And that shrine done. I didn't need to use my problem-solving abilities because I used my fire arrow brawn instead.
Works for me.
Yeah, so that's, I think, where this game hits a sweet spot is that it hits all levels of difficulty at once. So if you're somebody who loves puzzles and doing really obscure, difficult puzzles, first of all, I think that the number one tip before playing this game is do not read anything about it. Do not look at guides. Do not listen to this podcast. Just kidding. You can listen to this podcast. Because we're just giving some high level stuff, but really, the shrines that we talked about, some of these really obscure puzzles where you have to hold something a certain way at a certain place, and you have to find that place first, or to loose an arrow at the right spot, which again you have to find that right spot. There are clues, sometimes really obscure clues, that will lead you to these to solving these puzzles, but you still have to figure it out. So on one hand, there are extremely difficult puzzles that will reward you really, really handsomely if you figure them out. And on the other hand, the game isn't so rigid that it says, here is the one way to solve this problem. You must do this way. The game allows you some leeway so that if you don't know how to solve a dungeon the quote unquote intended way, but you can be clever enough to figure out a way to do it. Loosing a fire arrow, maybe not necessarily the most advanced version of that, but there are other temples where you can use a bomb instead of a magnet, or you can use the stasis thing instead of the magnet, or you can freeze water instead of doing something else. So there's so many variations on how to do it that it offers this really rewarding level to where if you get really frustrated, you don't have to do this really advanced stuff. You can go to some of the easier stuff or maybe find alternatives. And again, with the heat stuff, if you don't have the high-priced, cold-resistant armor to climb mountains, bring a fire sword with you. Or just take your shirt off if you're in the desert so that you don't get overheated. You can just
eat a bunch of peppers if you're in the mountains.
Yeah, exactly. Or eat a bunch of food that you can cook. So it's a very deep game that just has so many possibilities. It's just this giant open slate. And I said around 60 some hours into it, and I beat it, but I've only done, I think I'm about the same as you, AC. I've got maybe a row of hearts plus 2, I think.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and there's so much content in this game. It's stupid.
After I finished it, I thought, wow, I had done 82 shrines, and I think I've done a further 2 or 3 since then, and there are 120 shrines. I've opened up the entire map. I've done all of the main quests, including the memories, so you get the proper ending.
Oh, nice.
And after all of that, I had only done 19.43% of the entire game, which means that there are so many more side quests that, some of which will open up more shrines, some of which will give you more armor, and there are 900 Kokoro seeds. 900. Damn it. And I found about 30.
Korok seeds, right?
Korok. Yeah. What did I say? Korok.
You said Kokomo, which is a small town in Indiana. Shout out to my friend Kelly. I don't know. Chris, how about you? How are you doing on the Korok? Did you know there's 900?
Yes, I did. Just because of some of the interviews I'd read. I've probably got 40, maybe 35, 40.
Yeah. So the Korok seeds are the icing on the cake. I'm actually going to play a little inside ball here and tell you guys a little story you may not have known. I'm taking an improv class right now. at the Annoyance Theater in Chicago. And my teacher has a master's in education. She's really good at teaching, not only just knowing improv and being good at it, but she's a good teacher and she understands how to teach stuff. And in our first class, she explained one of the fundamentals of improv and of comedy is patterns. The difference between a really good improviser and a really okay improviser is patterns. If you do something on stage and you bring it back a couple times, that creates a rapport with the audience and it creates a character. Like on Mad TV, the girl that's like, he looked like a man. Her saying that over and over again, you know, that's her line. Saturday Night Live, the Night at the Roxbury guys, them bouncing their heads back and forth. You know, that's their character. They do it over and over again. It's good. And what she said that was interesting to me was that human beings are programmed to love patterns. So even if you don't think a certain thing is funny, if you're seeing an improv show or you're watching a show and there's a character that does a certain thing and kind of repeats that, humans are apparently hardwired to enjoy patterns and get kind of a little dopamine burst out of patterns. So anytime you see a design, there's some subreddits that are dedicated to just seeing mildly satisfying patterns where, you know, something's missing from a design. And once you insert it there, it's really perfect. So what the Legend of Zelda games have done, and they've done this a lot of times, is there will be places where you can complete a pattern. Let's say there's a circle of stones on a field somewhere. If you put a stone in, there's one stone missing, there's 10 stones and one's missing. If you put a stone in that hole, that finishes the pattern. And that's kind of mentally gratifying. So this is all the preface. I just wanted to give that background for some psychology nerds out there. Didn't think you'd learn something legit on this podcast, did you? You were so wrong. So what they do in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is you see some of these familiar patterns out in the wild. Let's say there's a tree stump that's kind of hollow in the top with a ball and chain attached to it. Take the magnet, bring that ball up and put it neatly in that little tree stump, or fill that rock, you know, you see a rock nearby, a circle of rocks, put that rock in the missing rock, it completes the thing. When you do any of these things to complete the pattern, your little brain is happy and you think, I did this thing to make my brain happy. What also happens is a little forest elf gnome thing, a Korok, pops out, makes a cute little sound effect, which my fiance loved. She thinks they're the most adorable things in the world. They make a little ha-ha sound effect and they give you a Korok seed, which you can later exchange with a Korok to expand your inventory so you can carry more breakable weapons and breakable shields and breakable bows.
I gotta ask, at this point, when you saw one the first time, did you try and kill it? Like, did you think, can I just drop the rock back on its head?
You know, I tried. It just bounced.
Yeah, he goes, ow, and does a little kick dance, and I went, okay, I'm going to do that every time now.
Are you part Australian, Chris?
It was not on purpose the first time. Instead of throwing the rock, I dropped the rock, so it just dropped straight in the guy's head and went boom and bounced off of him. And then from that point, I was like, okay, that's funny.
That should be part of New Game Plus. You have to go around, collect all the seeds, and then kill all the little dudes, giving them to you. Because there can be only one.
Those seeds again. We'll stop them right now.
Well, this took a dark turn, a very dark turn.
Like, but there's 900 of them. Like, oh.
Yeah,
I kept finding them by accident more than design, because I would just explore areas and they go, oh, there is a single rock here on the top of this very high peak. There's got to be something under here, and I think I know what it is. It's like, oh, I hate you so much. Why couldn't something valuable be up here?
Yeah, I sometimes wish the rewards were a little better, but it's nice to know that they dropped all these little things everywhere in the game. And by all these little, I mean literally 900, plus the 120 shrines. And the reason I kind of went into that backstory about patterns and satisfaction of the brain is that this game is in every way satisfying. Because every shrine, if you want to do a puzzle, do the shrine. If you don't feel like doing a puzzle and you want to keep exploring, just go up to the little shrine console. It immediately becomes a teleportable location on your map, so you can fast travel there at any point. If I don't feel like doing a puzzle or I get stumped, I just exit that little shrine. I can go there anytime immediately. Keep going. All these little Korok seed things are just 900 little pattern completing, brain satisfying dopamine burst that you've got. And then on top of that, there are 4 divine beasts, these giant monsters that you are tasked with kind of defeated. This isn't really a spoiler because they're outlined pretty early in the game, but these 4 divine beasts that you can kind of infiltrate and take over, turn away from Ganon's control. And they are basically mini dungeons where you have to solve a series of puzzles, fight a couple enemies, and then fight a really major mini boss. So it gives you the full dungeon experience. So this game gives you all of the good things that every Zelda game has done, removed any need to do it in any order at all, and totally let you loose, and then multiplied it by about 10 times.
I think, and it works so well for the game as well, because you can basically kind of do whatever you want in whatever order you want. And I think I actually did it if the game does have some sort of order that it wants you to do things, I think I would have done it in that order, because I went and did the fish people first up the top right hand of the map, not quite the top corner, but yeah, the fish people, Zorros or whatever they're called.
Zora is Antonio Banderas.
They were all such like colorful, fun, and enthusiastic characters.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Yeah, we're totally, and the way that the prince guy like flashes you a smile and puts his fist across his chest and goes, "Ha ha, we totally got this, Link." Yeah, and there was already so much DeviantArt about shipping those 2 characters, which I thought was magnificent. And it just gives, each area has such great personality and difference to it as well, that it makes you think, oh, I can't, I'm finished with these characters, and they'll still be over the map a little bit, and you can still run into them. But each one is just so unique in their culture as well. Like all of the Gorons call you brother, and I don't know much about wrestling, but apparently some wrestlers like to call you brother or leg day or something. Hogan. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's the guy.
That's the guy.
That's the racist guy, isn't it? Is that the guy who...
He has been outed as a racist now, yes.
Okay, right, yeah. Now, yeah.
Kind of ruined some of my 80s kid memories.
We just wrestling wasn't that popular here in Australia, I think. I didn't really know what...
Well, it's huge in Japan.
Yeah, it is. But it's very different in Japan as well. Like, it's not... Like, they have storylines and stuff like that, but it's kind of more about the act of wrestling and less of the storyline, whereas I knew nothing about wrestling, and then someone forced me to watch some WW something F or E or Ws, I don't know, maybe they're the 3 Ws. But what happened was, the storyline was that this match got so ridiculous that someone gave birth to a glove. And I just went...
I remember that one.
Entertainment to you people? What?
They showed you the 80-year-old Mae Young giving birth to a hand.
I have no idea what was going on, but there was a glove, and this person gave birth to it, and I was just like going, "What?" And this is a storyline. This is what you watch for entertainment, right? Okay, I think I've got the measure of wrestling here. People call each other brother, and it's always leg day and arm day, and that's it. And there are gloves.
Don't forget the 27-inch pythons.
Uncle Stebo would be proud. We have somehow degenerated into talking about pro wrestling even without him. How in the hell does this always happen? I mean, I know I'm on the podcast, so it'll happen, but I didn't even bring it up this time.
I think it's just, that's what those Goron guys reminded me, because they always call you brother, and they say it in this kind of raspy, kind of deep voice.
That's fair. So you started with the Ruto, or the Zora. Princess Ruto is the Zora. You started with the Zora. I started with the Rito, the bird people.
Ah, really?
What did you do, Chris?
I went to the Garridos first.
Of course you did.
So
that is a really fun one as well.
All 3 of us, out of 4 divine beasts, all 3 of us did a different one first, and that's really awesome. So, but I gotta ask Chris. So the kind of tutorial area, right? The first area is the Great Plateau. It's in the center of the map. And then once you've completed that and you get the glider, you can go north, south, east, west. You can go any direction off to whatever area you want and explore it. Now, when I got the leaf, I was like, all right, cool. I'm done with the Great Plateau. I grabbed a couple other little Korok seeds, completed a couple little patterns to make my brain happy, maybe did a shrine that was sitting there, but then I was kind of out of there. I believe you loitered, if I'm not mistaken.
Not terribly so. I loitered for a little bit because I wasn't sure what else to go do, but then after staying about another hour or two on the plateau after I had unlocked everything and could leave, I went, I want to go get a horse. And went to go get a horse.
Oh, okay. My understanding was you spent like several hours on the plateau.
I was probably up on the plateau when it's all said and done for 4 or 5 hours in total.
Wow.
Yeah.
But there's only 4 shrines up there, is that correct? There's no like hidden ones around the area or anything?
Not that I have found, but there was a bunch of stuff I wanted to find. Like there's this treasure chest underwater and I wanted to go get this treasure chest and I wanted to go blow this up and see what was happening. And I wanted to climb on top of the old Hyrule Temple or whatever, just to see what I could do up there. And yeah, I really early on in the game, I had the wanderlust to explore a lot.
And there is the plateau is a great tutorial and it's a great way to explore the area, but it tries to kind of rush you out of that area pretty quickly. They basically say, there's this whole entire open world. However, there are some things you can do. There is a hidden memory on the plateau somewhere, I do believe, as well, just before the bridge. And the memories you get, you come across pretty randomly because Link has amnesia, like all great sleeping heroes do. And to get the full ending of the game, you need to get 12 and then a final 13th memory to get like the full cutscene at the end of the credits. I do.
Which I have not seen, so no spoilers, because I do want to go back and do that.
Yeah. It is definitely it's worth it. I mean, I came across most of mine randomly just because I liked exploring. And you'll just suddenly come across these little glittering things on the ground, and it'll say recall when you step over, and you go, okay, I'll recall, and then you get you kind of get a piece of the memories. And the chances are you will not do these in order. And I'm not sure if I think there is a particular order that you can do them in chronologically that will tell the story. But the chances are you won't do them. If you kind of just come by these through happenstance, then you'll kind of get fragments. But they are saved, so you can go and watch them chronologically later on if you want to.
Yeah, I'm just doing them in whatever order suits me. I don't think I found a chronological order because I'm like, wait, what the heck's going on here? I'm so confused. Yeah. But, it kind of puts you in Link's mindset for all this too, though, because Link has no idea what's going on. And getting these back in fits and spurts, it kind of works story-wise as well.
Yeah,
it really does, because because the whole game is fairly non-linear, and then the way he's talking and remembering things is pretty non-linear as well. And what did you guys think about not giving Link a voice this time either? Are you guys for or against that?
I wanted to end on the voice acting.
Okay, sure.
I want to do one other thing first, and that is you've both talked a bit about wanting to explore and just explore, and I was the same as you, AC. It was like, okay, I'm on my way to do something, but what's that on that hill over there? Oh wait, what's that in that valley over there? Oh, what's that patch of grass? Oh, what's in that cave? And then suddenly you're running all over, and 6 hours later, you're like, wait, where was I going again?
Yep, been there.
Yeah.
For me, this happened by accident, but I 100% recommend it if anybody that's going to pick up the game. I was messing around with the menus and the options when I got the game, as one does, and I went to heads-up display, and I went to pro mode. Have either of you tried to mess with this option?
I have not used it, but I've seen other people do it online to basically minimize the HUD.
Okay, so normally in the game, there's a and I don't even know because I don't use it. There's a thing in the corner that shows how much noise Link is making, a little sound.
Oh yeah, I had that stuff on the entire time because I'm not used to open world games. I kind of had to have that on there just to keep my bearings.
Same here.
I turned it off immediately, so I didn't even know I did this. I had it on for a minute. Literally, first 5 minutes of the game, I just went in the controls and I'm looking at the options, heads-up display, normal or pro or something like that. And I was just like, I'm a pro, so I turned it on. What I didn't realize I did was I turned off everything but your hearts. So literally, the only information you get about Link at all is the hearts in the top left corner. And I will tell you, I read this in one written review, and I will agree with it. I was fully immersed the entire time. And I mean, I'm sure neither of you found it distracting because you were used to it at some point. But for me, just having the hearts, and I did have to pause the game a little more often because there's no mini map either. So I have to check the map once in a while to make sure I'm going in the right direction. You know, if I'm starting to go one way and I veer off, I don't know, am I going the right way? But the menus are so fast, it didn't slow me down significantly. And I liked having that clean heads-up display. And I'll tell you, for me personally, just the immersion was like really, really great. So maybe after beating the game, one of you guys wants to try it out, just give it a shot for a bit. And I mean, Link will hug himself if he's cold. He'll start to sweat and pant, and you'll start to lose hearts if he's too hot. So there are a lot of visual indicators that'll show you kind of what's going on, even without the heads-up display.
See, the biggest thing for me there's a crutch is that mini map, and that would be the hardest thing for me to lose. And it's probably just something you have to get used to. So I might give it a shot just to see, because I'm not a Zelda noob. I'm a Zelda pro like Cody.
Yeah, and again, that was mildly annoying. I did have to open the map somewhat regularly, but I enjoyed having that minimal display.
I can see why people would want to do that. Like, as I said, I'm a retro gamer, so I usually, you know, I mean, retro games don't give you a lot of help, but I don't also play a lot of modern games, especially open world games like this. So getting used to the controls and having to use not only every, you know, all 163 buttons on the damn Pro controller, including motion controls and including every different possible combination of 163 buttons. But I had to kind of get used to the way the world works and get my bearings. And in real life, I have no sense of direction at all. None. And if I wasn't paying attention to the map, and thank God you can put markers on the map to say, go this way. Because if I ever lost sight of the tower, I would find that I would just suddenly, for whatever reason, start going in the opposite direction. I'd go, okay, I need to go to that tower to activate it. And then, wait, I've been in this area before, like, you know, 2 days ago. Or, oh, God damn it.
Yeah,
so I kind of needed that information, but I would like to play it without any of the HUD information just to see what would happen to me. Can you get rid of the hearts as well? Like, can you, so you don't even know how much life you've got? Like, just be worrying all the time, oh my God, am I almost dead?
Maybe in hard mode, but not right now. And Quinn977 in the chat, which we are broadcasting live on YouTube, 163 buttons are too much. Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They need to eliminate at least 2 of those buttons. 161 I can handle. 163, I'm out. I was always, I mastered all the controls except when I needed to go to the menu. What always confused me is the plus and minus buttons. Minus would go to map, plus would always go to like inventory. And then I'd always want to go look at the quests or something further along to change my weapons because you're always in the food section of your inventory. But the way my brain works is I need to go left. So I'd press the map button and go, no, I need to go right, then press the left trigger to go over there. So I was forever pressing the wrong button in
I still do that.
Yeah.
Really?
I do it all the time.
Yeah, I think literally the only improvement control-wise I would possibly have recommended is maybe just combine those menus so you can hit L or R to go across the full threshold, and select would shortcut to the map and start, and plus would, minus would go to the map, plus would go to your inventory. But whatever. If you hit the wrong one, you just hit the other one.
Yeah. There's like, it still pauses the game, so it's no detriment to you, really. I think though one of the big FUs, I don't think we're allowed to swear on this podcast. I swear all the time on my own. One of the big FUs Nintendo did was obviously this game was originally started to be designed for the Wii U, and that inventory would have been so damn useful on the Wii U gamepad because you would have had a second screen. And that's obviously what it would have been designed for. And I think Nintendo really should have included that for the Wii U version rather than just make it a duplicate of the Switch version. Because like you had all of these people who were loyal to the Wii U, And the game did come out for Wii U, but it was obviously the Switch version of it. They obviously changed it up so that it wasn't, dual screen compatible at some point. And I really wish that they'd kept that functionality for the Wii U as a thank you to, the 2.5 people who actually bothered to buy their Wii U console. And like just kind of putting it out there going, oh yeah, you can have this, I guess, but we don't care about you guys anymore is kind of a bit, a dickish move on Nintendo's part, I think.
Chris, you follow actual news and actual background on stuff a lot more than me, who just says, here's what I thought of this, and here's what my friends thought of this. Do you know anything about the Wii U sales or have any particular thoughts on the porting of it?
So it was originally announced as a Wii U game, like 4 years ago, Breath of the Wild. And then as we got closer to the new generation being the Switch, they eventually decided we're going to move that over to be a launch game there. So I think AC's right. I think there was a lot of stuff inventory-wise that would have been perfect for that Wii U controller. But I think Nintendo looked at the numbers and went, we don't have a lot of Wii U's out there. We're banking big on this Nintendo Switch. Let's build towards that. I mean, that's probably why you sometimes see that it actually ran a little smoother on the Wii U at times than it did on the Nintendo Switch.
I think I agree. From a business standpoint, I think Nintendo, made the right decision there. However, because there are so many Zelda nerds out there that if you made a slightly different version for the Wii U, Zelda nerds probably would have bought both. They probably would have gone out and bought a Wii U to have this slightly different, possibly slightly more functional copy of Zelda for the Wii U. And I think, it's just having the same version was just kind of a bit, it just feels disingenuous a little bit to me, I think.
It reminded me a lot of Twilight Princess when that came out for both the GameCube and the Wii at the same time. And the only difference is that the GameCube version was a mirror image of what you got on the Wii.
It was flipped because Link is left-handed in all of the games, but when you use motion controls, of course, most people are right-handed, so they had to switch that over for that.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Anyway, I wanted to do we have to address the elephant in the room, which is not everything about this game is really perfect, although it is exceptionally good. I absolutely, and this is, I hate to say this, because for years, people would say, why is there no voice acting in Zelda? Why does every other game I play have voice acting except the Legend of Zelda games? And they'll keep the silent protagonist. Sure, Link can be silent, but why doesn't Zelda talk? Why doesn't Ganon talk? Why don't all these other people talk? So this is the first Zelda game where they put in full-on voice acting. And why did they cast who they cast? I hate these voices. They are all terrible. Zelda sounds like a 70-year-old woman. At best, Zelda sounds like Cersei Lannister, who is definitely in her late 40s to early 50s. She is way over dramatic. It is overacted. Her voice is like a tenor when she is a soprano in every game she's ever had any voice acting in. The Goron is bad. The Rito, I want to punch in the face. He's like a bad version of Falco Lombardi. The guy.
I can't unsee that now.
Right? Like, I'm sorry, but every single line that is spoken, I find reprehensibly bad. And maybe I'm being a little rough on it, but oh my God, I have not heard a game miss the mark this badly since Ninja Gaiden 3. That's a lot for anyone who's ever heard my podcast before. So I'm sure no one on earth feels as strongly about this as me. I'll let you two chime in. Chris, we'll start with you because AC is still laughing. But
it wasn't the best voice acting out there, but I've heard worse, I think, or it's just the sheen of the game hasn't worn off. I'm just like, I don't care. I want to go explore something else. Shut up and stop talking.
Yes, shut up and stop talking. My thoughts exactly. I expected to walk into Hyrule and hear Zelda say, "Don't open that door." Resident
think
Evil 2 reference.
I think like when you say it's fully voice acted, I don't think that's necessarily true. Like a lot of all the cutscenes are, of course, fully voice acted, but when you talk to people, you won't hear them, enunciate everything they say. They'll often have like a ho ho or or ee.
Or,
So they
hey.
make sound effects, yeah. Or especially when you're selling something, they go oh, and I kind of liked that. Like when you try and sell like precious stones or something, and to make some money, get to buy armor or whatever, they'll go oh ooh, and I kind of like that. They go oh, and then they're disappointed. Oh, okay, you have to go now.
But they've always done that in the Zelda games, so that's been well done. I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds fine. I don't think their voice acting bothered me as much. I'm just glad that they went for like Zelda. It was not right, but I'm just glad they had a British accent for that, because an American, no offense guys, wouldn't have worked, and an Australian accent would have been the absolute worst. Yeah, g'day love. You don't suppose you could pop over to the castle and save me, eh? Maybe bring some stones with you.
Would be amazing.
I will redub they should have used my Queen voice. Yes, if Link would like to come and save me now, that would be actually quite a special event for me.
Oh my god. What?
That may have been better.
Didn't you get the Japanese Switch though? Don't you listen to Japanese voices?
I can. But okay, so my Japanese isn't fluent, and I didn't get the Japanese version of Zelda because the Switch is finally Nintendo did something right and made it region free. Finally. I have big problems about that. I have published articles insulting Nintendo face to face about how like it's just such a primitive concept, region locking, which they even did with the 3DS. Stupid reason. But I did not get the Japanese version of that because it would take me like twice as long to play, because I'd have to go through all of the dialogue. I'd have to read everything. I'd have to listen to everything twice just to make sure I got all of the elements. My reading, I can read, but it's slow, and I have to translate words along the way and everything like that. So I just went for the English version, and everyone goes, oh, I just wish they had the Japanese version with English subtitles. Now, to be fair, that probably would have been a bit better. But what you got to understand is that if you don't understand Japanese, it might look much better. But sometimes Japanese voice acting ain't all that. Sometimes it's not that great either.
Are you talking about how the voices sound or the actual acting?
Both. I've seen a bit. It doesn't. If you've seen any of the Japanese Zelda, like I think that the voices are a little bit more standardized, and they sound quite different. But at the same time, they seem to miss a lot of the emotional cues to me. Obviously, like people think that you record voices and then you animate afterwards. But Japanese have a tendency, and I'm assuming this is how they did it, of animating first, then adding the voices second. And that happens in animation and games. Why you would do it that way around, I have no idea. But it's basically standard industry practice over there for whatever reason. And looking and listening to the Japanese version of the voice acting, I don't think it's that great either. It's probably better, and you can probably say this is a Japanese game. I'll listen to the Japanese, but really I'll just be reading the subtitles underneath. That might be better too, because it was probably made for the Japanese voices in the first instance. But who knows how much effort they went into localizing? Maybe they did change it up a bit.
All I know is it's better than hearing "Hey, listen" all the time.
Kite kudasai, kite kudasai. Ne, ring-san.
So I don't know how this is in Australia, but in America, and I don't know, Chris, if you watch any anime, maybe it's different in your neck of the woods, but in the Midwest here in good old Northern Illinois, all my friends and I, and a lot of the people I know, it's pretty much gospel that when you're watching anime, you watch Japanese voices with English subtitles 99% of the time, unless it's Cowboy Bebop. is pretty much the one that there's a consensus that the English voice actors are the best. Is that the way you're used to it, Chris, too? Or
So I'm not a huge anime guy, but I've had friends that watch a lot of anime, and most of what they watch is the English subtitles. And occasionally they'll watch something that's dubbed over if they can't get those subtitles.
okay,
But the default is subtitles.
so is it different in Australia? Do they usually do just the dub?
No, it's subtitles for the most part as well. There are a couple of exceptions. I think, like, for me, of course, it's different. I will always watch with subtitles. Dubs, for the most part, drive me mad because in the early days of anime, and I think I'm like 36 years old, so I remember anime from the 90s, there were only like a couple of people who voiced basically 90% of anime. So you kept hearing the same dubs over and over again in the English VHS copies that you used to get. And soon as subtitled anime came out on the internet, you went, oh my God, this is so much better. Because the original dub voices they got for the VHS tapes way, way, way back when weren't that great, to be honest. But I think the exceptions to the rule, at least in my opinion, are Neon Genesis Evangelion. I think that is on par with the, and in some cases better. Like, I think Oscar's voice actor, who actually speaks German in English, is better than the Japanese voice actress. And I've actually met the Japanese voice actress as well. She was in Sydney doing a talk on something.
All right, enough of the Evangelion podcast.
No.
You once recorded a 4-hour Evangelion podcast?
You keep pronouncing it Evangelion, and I'll come up there and kick your ass.
Ooh, do it, Cody. Keep saying it.
I'll do it just to get you up to crash my wedding.
I really wish I could do that. I really wish I could actually
Got
come
the
up
date.
there and
I'm calling your bluff. I mean, I'll be able to talk to you for all of 2 minutes because it's a wedding.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'd probably spend most of my time hanging around Uncle Stabbo. Actually, no, I wouldn't even be able to do that because he's in your wedding party, isn't he?
Oh, God. Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah. You wouldn't want to do that anyway. His wife is lovely. My wife is going to be lovely, too.
He's going to be lovely. She's not going to be lovely until she becomes my wife.
There's that. Oh, wow, we got derailed. Well, okay, wonderful. We have been going a while, and it is a Friday night. Chris probably wants to at least play some games or do something. And I know you have a podcast to get to, but any last thoughts? Anything we didn't cover about Breath of the Wild? I think overall, I think it is the best Zelda game, probably, in terms of, I mean, value, like replayability. You don't even need to replay it. Getting through all the content for the first time will take you longer than any Zelda game in the best way. So I mean, I cannot recommend this game enough. It is excellent. I will be playing it for months, which is good because not a whole lot else is coming out on the Switch for several months. But it is probably the best game in the Zelda series that I can think of. I don't know. And then we'll go to, I guess, Chris, for your thoughts.
So, Cody, you're right. Replayability is going to be huge on this. I mean, 900 Korok seeds. They looked at Rocksteady and said, those 250 Riddler trophies, we're going to beat that. I mean, that's what it felt like to me. For me, great game. It's a system seller for the Switch. It's the exact reason why I bought one. I said, eventually I'll get Mario when Mario Odyssey comes out. I have loved it. Now that I'm back from Mass Effect Andromeda, I keep bouncing back and forth between Mario Kart and Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, for me, while I love Breath of the Wild, it's still not my favorite Zelda game. That's still a toss-up between A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time for me.
That's fair. I don't think anyone's going to like, oh, how could you like Ocarina of Time the best? One of the literally highest rated games of all time.
Yeah, exactly. I just quoted like some of the 3 highest rated games of all time are like Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, and Breath of the Wild, probably. So nobody can really argue those points, I don't think.
I'd say this is probably my favorite Zelda game. I haven't played through all of them, but I have played through most of the retro ones. I still have just such a fondness in my heart for Link's Awakening for the original Game Boy, just because like it was portable, it was playable, it was unforgettable in a lot of ways. It didn't even have Zelda in it; it didn't even need it. But I just have a special place in my heart. But in terms of actual gameplay and everything, this is the greatest Zelda game. It is a system seller, I agree. I think the Switch will have a lot going for it, but it had a stronger launch than a lot of other Nintendo systems. Like even the 3DS, you think is a runaway success now, But when they launched it, like, it was too expensive, and they had to have an ambassador program to, to placate the people who overspent after they dropped the price on it, and they were given a whole bunch of GBA games and stuff like that. So I think it's a fantastic game. I think everyone should play it. I will finish on asking the question: will you be buying the DLC, or have you already bought the DLC and waiting for it to come out?
Good
Cody?
question. And by the way, we had Quinn977 in the chat say, I like Wind Waker. Also, very, very popular with lots of people. And I will say, the original Wind Waker, I used to kind of tease and call it a screensaver because he would sail so much. Wind Waker HD kind of fixed some of that problem. So Wind Waker HD, yeah, I would say a lot of people's favorite. Also very, very good and fun to play. The playability is really up there. Anyway, DLC. So yeah, the first DLC is a hard mode, which I have no interest at all in playing. It just
me too.
There are parts of this game that are extremely challenging. There are still regular enemies that kill me. There are mini bosses that kill me that I haven't been able to defeat yet. And there's a lot of challenge already in here. Plus, I don't feel the need to restart the game. Now, what does the hard mode do exactly? Doesn't it just make it easier for enemies to kill you?
Hard mode is something that should have been in the game itself, not necessarily as DLC. The first half of the DLC we're getting here, that's the crap no one's going to care about. The second half, where they're going to put in more story missions and more shrines and things like that, that's the important thing. I mean, but for $20, it's probably worth it. I mean, I haven't bought Nintendo DLC before,
don't you? Like, you have to buy number 1 and number 2. You can't just buy the second DLC.
You pay $20, you get both DLC packages. Yeah. That's how it works. And the first stuff that comes out, like Cody said, is a hard mode. AC, you mentioned earlier, the map tracking is going to get dropped in then. And then there's also a challenge mode, kind of like a horde mode you get in FPSs almost, where you have to kill waves and waves of enemies with weapons you pick up. And supposedly at the end of that, it then supercharges the Master Sword for you, so that the Master Sword is permanently in its charged state like it would be against any of Ganon's forms. I'm kind of intrigued because I love the Master Sword.
So you're a yes, Chris?
I haven't bought it yet. I probably will, but probably once I actually beat most of the story and things like that, I'll consider it. I mean, there's no DLC out yet, so I'm not going to throw down my money immediately, because I can throw it down the day it comes out if I decide I want it.
I gotcha. I'm at an interesting junction in my video game career, because I've been sucked into my first massively multiplayer online RPG, Final Fantasy XIV. And
here we go again with the Final Fantasy XIV.
To be honest, the only reason I beat Zelda was because I had plane trips to and from San Francisco and Minneapolis. Literally, if I hadn't had those trips, I probably wouldn't have beaten the game yet, because all I do is play Final Fantasy XIV. And there's a new expansion, Stormblood, coming out June 20th. And I'm not even at level 60, the current level cap, and I haven't beaten the first DLC, the first expansion content. So I'm going to try to plow through that in the next month, and then have Stormblood and then plow through that. Honestly, Final Fantasy XIV will likely be the only game that I play for the next 3 to 5 months, if not longer. And I mean pretty much the only game. Maybe if I'm really tired, I'll bust out a run of Rogue Legacy, or if a friend's online, I'll play Risk of Rain, or maybe I'll occasionally play Zelda if I'm in bed or on the train or something. But I'm at a very mono gaming stage in my gaming life right now. So because of that, I don't see myself getting the DLC. I haven't purchased anything. I get alerts that, oh, an item on your Steam wishlist on sale, it's only $3. And I literally have been saying, I will not play this, so I'm not going to buy this. So I'm at a weird point, and for that reason, I'm not going to be buying the Zelda DLC in the foreseeable future. But if the reviews come out and the shrines are really cool, I mean, the other thing is I've only done half the shrines in the game. So it becomes one of those things of like, do I need an extra 20 or 30 or 40 or 10 shrines if I still have half the game's content in front of me? Probably doesn't make much sense. So especially at $20, I'm probably going to hold off on it.
Yeah, so the decider for me really comes down to is what the second half of the DLC looks like. I don't care as much about the first half of the DLC, so I'll probably wait and see what's coming with the second half and then make that decision. But to be honest, I'm kind of similar to what you've described, Cody. At this point, I kind of gravitate to one game and just play it until I'm done with it. I mean, like I said, I was playing Zelda, but then I had to go to Mass Effect. I didn't stop playing Mass Effect until I beat it, and now I'm back to Zelda. And I started Mario Kart just because I picked it up. But Mario Kart's kind of become my go-to right now because I can play for 10, 15 minutes when I get home from work or when I've got some time, and then I can put it down and be good. Zelda, it's tough for me to do that because I get sucked in. I'm like, oh, where'd these 3 hours go? I love it, but I can't do that during the week as much.
I think I agree with the two of you as well. Like, I'm not in a rush to go out and buy it, and it's the second part which, gives you more game. But who knows where you're going to be? Like right now, I love Zelda and I want to play more Zelda, especially more story elements of Zelda. But, when this finally comes out, however many months it is down the track, I may have moved on completely. And I'm, oh, Zelda. Oh, yeah, I used to love that game, 6 months ago, whatever. And I just really would prefer to see what it's like before I jump in, I think. Because, being a retro gamer, the great thing is that I can duck in and out of many games. Like, if I feel like playing a shooter, I might go play Gradius or something, or I might go play Darius. And I might, wet my whistle, so to speak, and get it out of my system for 20 minutes, half an hour and go, okay, that was great. I've had enough for the time being. But yeah, Zelda will suck you in. And there are times, especially when you're married with children, where that becomes so much more difficult to really, really get into a game. Sometimes to the point of, it might be impossible because even after your child, baby, toddler goes to bed, you're just so damn exhausted after doing everything all day, going to work, coming home, playing with the baby, putting the baby to bed, and, making sure she goes to sleep, etc. So unless all of a sudden I have a massive swath of free time, because my wife and daughter need to go back to Japan again, I'll wait till it comes out and see how it goes, I think. But, it for $20, which in Australia will probably be $120 because Australia sucks.
Good point.
I might buy it.
Yeah, and Quinn977 in the chat says got the DLC still waiting for the new map thing. So some people are going to be able to consume that and play that and get into that, which I think is great. And I think the portability is probably going to be not just the portability, but the quickness in which you can turn it on and off. AC, I would imagine, would be pretty good for parenting because you just hit sleep on that. And
yeah, I think that is probably something I'm going to use more, the portability in the future, because as my daughter begins to start crawling and walking and pulling things off shelves, these things are going to have to be up much higher so she can't get her hands on them. And my garage is going to be completely locked down so she can't get in there, start messing up all my retro game consoles. But my major problem is that I have been playing portable games. I love Game Boy. I love the PSP. I love the Vita. But I've been playing all of these things for so many damn years that I now need glasses to be able to see anything on such a tiny screen. And the thing is, I don't wear my glasses as much as I should. So, when I'm playing Switch, I really, really do need my glasses, despite the fact that the screen ain't that small. It's just that my eyesight after 30 years of playing portable games is really that shocking. So it's a combination of portability, but me also having to find my glasses, remember my glasses, and put on my glasses as well.
But you look so sexy in them.
I think I've had people say that I look like a Nazi scientist in glasses.
Chris is thinking real hard about that one.
They're very roundish. I've literally broken these glasses 4 times, and this is, you probably can't see this because if you're listening to this on the podcast, but there is a break in the frame near the nose. There is another break over here, which I've twisted around with wire, and there's another one over here where the arm connects to the rest of the front of the glasses.
All right, let's not turn this into another Evangelion podcast.
4 hours, here we come.
I think that wraps up.
I will now read the alphabet out as the Queen. Hey, and so wow, that wasn't the Queen.
That was like
I hiccuped at the exact moment. I tried to do my Queen impression, and it came out like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Oh, God. And off the rails we go. Again, I'm surprised we lasted this long on the rails. And we have, again, in the chat, Quinn977 actually on the Game Life Balance U.S. Google Plus page, because yes, that's a thing, commented with a photo of Mario Kart 8, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Puyo Puyo Tetris, and the Bomberman game, all on Nintendo Switch. So we have a Switch super fan in the chat. And then I'm glad you tuned in for our live broadcast, and I'm glad that you're enjoying the Switch, and hopefully you enjoyed this kind of overview of Zelda and the Switch. And I think we pretty well beat into the ground every possible comment we could make about it, although I didn't talk about the voice acting, which, let me tell you, is literally
You want me to talk about Evangelion? I can do that.
Yes, let's talk Evangelion after this. Oh my. No, so we'll yeah, I guess so we'll wrap up the little gaming discussion and just spend like 2 or 3 minutes real quick with a kind of what's coming up on your next podcast, and where can people find you, and is there anything new and noteworthy going on in your life you'd like to kind of put out there? And AC, we'll start with you, and congratulations, by the way, on your family returning to you this week. That's very exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been a bachelor now at home back in Australia, while my wife and daughter have been in Japan for many a month. But I've also been over to Japan quite a lot as well, and I think I'm getting sick of traveling, and my wife is getting sick of traveling, and I felt like I've missed so much of my daughter growing up at the moment, just because she's been so far away. My mother-in-law had cancer, well, still has cancer really, but my daughter, who is the only child, has to be over there. But coming up, I am actually literally doing the Australian edition of Game Life Balance after this afternoon. I have no idea what our featured game is going to be. Usually I have a say in this, but this time, because we're recording at Rob's place, I don't.
Oh.
Because we've been doing a lot of retro stuff lately, because I have my rather large collection here, and we've been recording at my house a lot. And then he goes, no, we need to do something more modern. And then he said, we're going to do Ninja something. I wasn't really paying attention because Rob was talking. And yeah, who listens to their co-hosts, really? So keep a listen out for that. Rob and I are in a similar vein to Cody and Uncle Stabo's podcast. We're a lifestyle podcast with games. We talk about our lives and what games we've been playing. And we have a featured game every episode, which we delve deep into.
Yeah, definitely. There's more of a structure than there is in Game Life Balance US, but
yeah, we need one, because without it, it goes like, we're pretty off the rails. We spent an entire episode talking about John Scatman John, whatever his name was.
That's the best episode. That's your best. If you ever apply for the Guinea Geek Network, which I have told you to do for months, I've told you for months. I've told Chris several times. I'm like, Chris, I think they're going to apply. It's going to be really great. We'll be international. Well, I guess network owners in Canada, and we're in the US. So we're already international, but like actually international. I mean, intercontinental network. And every time you'll spend half your episode talking about, we should submit this episode to the Gonna Geek Network. We'll scare them off forever.
After insulting the Gonna Geek Network for like half of that episode.
They did call me, they did say Cody, I think, is the owner of the network 6 or 7 times. And every time I tweet at them and say, I'm not the owner of the network. But
if we get accepted, you guys know that we're going to be the loose cannons, right? We're gonna...
That's a tall order. I'm on there.
That's tough to do.
We'll send you the Scatman John episode, and you guys make the decision.
That's true. Scatman John could give All Things Good and Nerdy a run for their money. You guys get...
We made fun of this guy for literally half the episode, and then found out he was dead. And then we made the rest of it making fun of him even more and making apologies to his family.
It's fantastic.
We also have a running joke about The Assassins, a Radical Sect of Islam, which is a book I accidentally once pulled off Rob's like rather extensive library and questioned him to have it. And then we went on to insult the author, who we assumed was dead. Turns out he's 101 and still alive.
Well, but to be fair, in Australia, you're in the future. So a lot of people who are dead there are not actually dead yet.
I don't think you ever die in England, really. You just go and have extended periods of tea.
With the Queen.
With the Queen. Oh, yes. One just like having tea with your subjects.
Oh my God. I think you could give all Things Good and Nerdy is one of the podcasts that Chris is on. And I've been on that before. That can also get pretty out of control.
Yeah, that's putting it charitably. It never gets into quite the right level of control, it seems like lately.
But it's good. It's good.
Those are the best podcasts, though, when anything can happen.
Now that we've clarified that you're no longer doing Nerd Alert News, which was an excellent podcast, I will say, but I was wondering why it wasn't on my feed. But, well, now I know.
Burnout happens. That one I just burned out. It was too much to do with all the other projects I had going.
Yeah, you've got a lot of podcasts, and they're all really good. So even when they're off the rails, but sometimes those are the best ones, which hopefully some of our listeners to this episode will think. But what do you have even coming up? I was on GonnaGeek.com podcast with you a couple weeks ago, but you're always on it. So what's up now?
So I don't know what we're doing this week because I have yet to look at the show notes for this upcoming show of the GonnaGeek.com show because I still have another 2 podcasts to do before Monday. So I've got to work my way through those ones before I get to it.
What are you going to be? Because you do All Things Good and Nerdy on Sunday. What's the other one?
Right. So we did a double feature for the Starling Tribune this week, which is our fan podcast for the TV show Arrow. On Thursday, we did a recap of this season of the DC TV shows. And then on Sunday, after we record All Things Good and Nerdy, we're doing a live recording of our first impressions on the Wonder Woman movie, since that just dropped this week. So this is a heavy podcasting weekend for me, and you can find all that stuff over at GonnaGeek.com, folks.
Now, wait, are you a woman?
That's a very personal question, Cody.
That's true. I'm just wondering if you were allowed to review the Wonder Woman movie.
So that's where it'll get interesting is who knows what the internet's going to say. I'm a 30-year-old white male who is middle class and lives in North America. I'm probably not entitled to have an opinion on the Wonder Woman movie.
My friend Wolfen, yes, we'll just say his name is Wolfen. He posted a couple of comments on Facebook about Wonder Woman and said, definitely a top 3 comic book movie. And I just commented in all caps, it's not top 1, you sexist pig. But I don't know. I jest. I think the internet's silly, and I just make fun of everything everyone says all the time. So I have no actual strong feelings about it. Have you seen the movie yet, Chris?
I'm going to go see it tomorrow afternoon. I have seen some of the reviews that have come out, and it's highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes, and people I trust who have seen it have said this is a really good movie, so I'm excited. I want it to be good. I hope it's good, but most of the other DC movies have been crap.
Yeah, this might be the turning point for the DC universe. Like this movie might actually be good. But it might be funny, like this movie might be absolutely fantastic, and then every other male superhero movie in the DC universe might suck hard.
That's true too.
Yeah. Well, those are some cool things to look forward to. And again, those are all at GonnaGeek.com. You can find Game Life Balance US on the Gonna Geek Network at GonnaGeek.com or at GameLifeBalance.us. And Game Life Balance Australia is located at GameLifeBalanceAustralia.com, where they'll be dropping new episodes more often than their United States counterpart, because Cody has been really, really busy, is currently pretty much working 2 jobs, if not more, and has a very busy summer. And, oh, by the way, is getting married in just about 4 months. So,
oh, look, that doesn't take up much of your time. You just got to stand in front of like a priest guy dressed in black and say, yeah, that sounds like fine, mate. Yeah, I'll get married. Why not?
Yeah, we still need to ask our friend to actually do the ceremony. So
is that going to be Uncle Stabo?
No. God.
Do you, Casey, take this piece of... Okay, get him. They have to drag him away kicking and screaming, I hate you, Cody! Or maybe this is where he declares his love for you. He will be banging above the altar going, Cody, I love you! Don't do it!
Chris, I may need you to come be security at the wedding and just stop something from happening.
Just buy me some beers. I'm good.
The beers, many beers will be had, I'm sure. Wow. Well, on that delightful note, unless either of you have any parting words, I am Cody Gough from Game Life Balance U.S. This has been a lovely little review that I'm sure I will pare down so it's less than an hour and 50 minutes on the audio only version, or not. Maybe I'll extend it. Maybe I'll put in a couple clips of Rob complaining about the Queen voice or something.
There is many clips to choose from.
There are.
Of Rob complaining.
Well, AC, thank you so much for joining us from Australia. It's always cool to. I just think it's the coolest thing in the world that, like, I listen to you all the time. I listen to Chris all the time. None of us live anywhere near each other, and I would buy either of you a beer at any point. Yes, that's on record, so now I owe you both beers. I don't care. I'll buy you a Foster's just to spite you. We'll go to an Evangelion marathon.
Words. As a bonus to this podcast, you should just like have that 4-hour episode of Evangelion at the end of this podcast.
I want to put it in the middle.
But every time you mention the word Evangelion, like you pronounce it wrong, it goes back and just plays all 4 hours of that again.
Wow. I noticed we dropped to 0 viewers on YouTube. Well done, gentlemen. Well done. And AC. Great. Well, we're going to wrap up then. Chris, why don't you take us out?
See you later, guys. I don't know what you want me to do.
Don't you have the copy for Gonna Geek Network to read or something?
Oh my God, I have copy from Gonna Geek.
God damn it. I'm not even on your network and I know what to do, and you guys don't.
Hold on. This is
an official Gonna Geek Network podcast, isn't it?
Oh God, I have 5 more minutes until I have an official date with my fiance. I can't be late. I have to end this.
Ready? Go.
Thank you for listening to the Game Life Balance. Is this a Game Life Balance US or a Game Life Balance GAIDEN episode?
Game Life GAIDEN. We'll call it
Game Life GAIDEN. So Game Life GAIDEN is when we just kind of mix and match hosts randomly. I think this should appear on both of our feeds. I'll send you
definitely.
a finalized file when it's done. Feel free to put it on your RSS or not. I don't even care. But anyway, this is the American/Australian/West Virginia edition of the Game Life Balance podcast. GameLifeBalance.GonnaGeek.international.tumblr.com. Don't go there. It's porn. Please like, share.
That's just porn of me.
And so, this is the best outro ever.
Dressed as the Queen.
Dressed as the Queen. Please like, share, and subscribe and cosplay as the Queen if you enjoyed this episode. And leave us a review if you really want to make our day. Or if you hated this, please don't leave us a review. You can find all of us except for AC's lazy ass on the Gonna Geek Network at GonnaGeek.com or on WGNRadio.com, maybe if I decide to grace them with this wonderful content. You can learn more about Game Life Balance, including contact information and links to the 2 sister shows at GameLifeBalance.us and GameLifeBalanceAustralia.com. And you can find Chris on atgnpodcast.com or GonnaGeek.com or lots of other places. Basically, Google us, find us on Twitter, find us, or as AC would say, on Twitter.
Twitter, mate. You got to go to the tweets.
All right, I'm ending this madness. Ending it. I tell you,